Hey there, everybody. It's Mike out with Savage Kingdoms role-playing game and Fire in the Head Productions. Thought I would do another video in the series of the Savage Kingdoms of Astagonia. So, again, the views, trying to get the views up. So if you guys can help me share and like and maybe give me some advice on the YouTube algorithm, I can't seem to figure it out. I don't super advertise this stuff really, so I should probably get a little bit better at that. I'm just trying to grow the channel a little bit more, mainly to grow the game Savage Kingdoms. I also do the channel for acting, for my acting stuff as well as tabletop role playing. So I should probably separate the two. Let me know if you guys have any advice on that. I probably should do that. I think intuitively I know I should do that. But you know, maybe I can hear from some other people. So maybe I'll do my acting channel. Is this technically my profession? Game design is just a minor thing, and then game design for the other one, sharing stuff about Dungeons and Dragons and particularly Savage Kingdoms. I think you just saw my cat cross back there. If you saw a calico-colored creature, that was my cat, Callie. All right, so today we're going to do the video about the Prydonian people. So they're the central islanders of the Prydonians and the outer islands. And that's a very generic term. It's just a way to break it down game mechanically to the different races. Just like Larenthia has 5 different major provinces, and then there's different areas all within this main province because it's a pretty large empire. It's broken down into Southern Larenthian and Northern Larenthian when you make your character. So Prydonians, however, are even more broken up. They have their own. Both of them have their own entries. Here is our central islander Prydonian. There's your outer islander. Oh, spoilers, because that's a new video. That'll be the other video. So this video is about the central islanders going in alphabetical order, Prydonians. Let me show you a map. You've probably seen a map if you're familiar with the game. People watching this who are my players or my Kickstarter backers or whatever might know what I'm talking about. But anyway, if you've seen a map of Astagonia, which is a western continent, the islands at the bottom that sort of broke away from the main island over a course of a couple of cataclysms, if you read the history, the timeline of the setting, those are collectively known as the Prydonian Islands because they sit in the Sea of Prydonis. Prydonis is the primary sea god of those people. And he goes all the way back to the old Rhodonians or the Rhodonites, which were the early Prydonians. They take their name from the island of Rhodon, which was said to be the island of the gods. There were 7 gods, some say 8, that lived there. Prydonis still being the king of the gods, going back even way back then. And if he really is an actual god, it's probably even much further than that. The reason I say if he is, because in the setting, if you're familiar with Savage Kingdom setting or in Sword and Sorcery in general, you know that the gods aren't necessarily real. It's the power comes from the belief in them, or maybe they are real and they're not really gods in the sense that we're talking. Maybe they're demons tricking people, and I leave that up mostly to interpretation. However, a major god like Prydonis is probably a real power or force, or the belief in him is just so great. So there you go. So in other words, it's probably not a powerful demon or even an angel tricking people into thinking it's a god. But maybe so. That's your interpretation when you run your particular setting and campaigns. Okay, here we go. Here's the paragraphs from the character creation section on the Central Islanders. Oh wait, the other point I was going to make about the islands, the Prydonian Islands at the bottom of the mainland. The Central Islands are kind of the more kind of civilized one. Those are the ones we're about to cover. Those would be the island of Prydonia proper, the island of Neopos, the island of Phylasteus, and the island of Orices. Those are considered really the 4 main. And there's a few smaller little islands with city-states and stuff, but just generally speaking, those are what's called the Central Islands, and those are the ones that have kind of the heart of sort of the more civilized ones, and they were traditionally more part of what's called the Prydonian Republic. So the Prydonian Republic goes way back. It was a collection of the islands that kind of formed a loose republic or almost a confederation, but I decided to call it a republic because it has kind of an old, antiquated feel to it, and that's the point. And then the outer islands are the more wilder folk, such as Athlon. The Athlonians are very much like Spartans. I did that on purpose. The Meergans, they're even ruled by a Medusa queen, a Gorgonic queen. right there at the right there where along the coast of Gorgotha, with a bunch of shattered islands that broke away from the really rough mountainous island terrain there, and treacherous waters there for sailing. Another one would be Sardana or Sardonia, also formerly known as Sardonica, which was kind of my sort of in joke, Sardonic and Sardonica. Silly. But in third edition, I sort of got rid of Sardana. I just call it Sardonia now. Is it Sardonia or is it Sardona? No, Sardona. Sardona is the deity, and Sardonia is the land. So you probably notice a pattern here with the Prydonian Islands. Most of the islands have a patron deity, and sometimes their name is based on that for obvious reasons. Prydonia and Prydonis, Sardona and Sardonia, and then they kind of vary from there. So yeah. Speaking of which, there is an island known as Tauren, the Isle of Tauren, which is the main deity there. The patron deity would be Orices, the bull god, the god of the sun. Excuse me, as I belch on camera. And he is the bull god, sun god. So this island is apparently ruled by minotaurs. Minotaurs are a type of gorgon in the Savage Kingdom setting. And the minotaur, there is actually a minotaur king that rules there. Pretty mighty fellow, actually. All right, so here's a paragraph from the character creation section of the Prydonian Central Islander section. The people from what is commonly known as the Central Isles of the vast Prydonian island realms are typically referred to in accordance to their actual home island. That is Neoposians, or Neoposians, the people from Neopos. Phylasteus, Oricians, and Prydonians proper. So those are the four central islands I just talked about. So in other words, they would call most people, this is more of a game mechanic thing, a meta thing to say I'm from this, I'm a central islander. Well, not really, you could say that. But most people probably say I am from Neopos, I'm from Phylastia. They wouldn't necessarily say I'm a central. It's almost like saying I'm a Central American. You would probably say where your actual region is from. And Prydonia is proper for those that form the more civilized kingdoms of the once Prydonian Republic, a governing body which I just spoke about, but a governing body still in half existence, and whose religious and political center is the half-sunken city of Prydon. So the city of Prydon was the first kind of big city that humans, especially in the West, kind of built this grand city, and Prydon means city of the sea, whereas Prydonis means sea lord. So all those words are linguistically related, obviously. So yeah, this big city Prydon on the island of Prydonia, and then there's the god Prydonis, and then there's the Sea of Prydonis. I know it can get very confusing, but all that's there for a reason. I think it's fairly realistic that a culture that's very entrenched in beliefs of this powerful deity of the sea and water and life-giving would probably use his name a lot in the root words of their language. But that's a minor torrent aside. Physically, Prydonians from the Central Isles are of medium height and somewhat slight build, typically with curly dark brown hair, brown eyes, and moderately sun-kissed skin. They favor the ancient Greeks of real-world history, but with a dash of Atlantean sentimentality. The typical Central Islander reveres Prydonis, the sea god, above all others, although such divinities as Orices, Sardana, Agathon, sometimes called Argathon in this area, Orices, Lucia, and Neopos are seldom forgotten, a pantheon often referred to as the elder deities. So there you go. I used to call them the elder gods with the first edition, so if you have a copy of that, and then I changed it because elder gods, it's too derivative of the Cthulhian mythos. And I was aware of it at the time, and I was like, I'll just call it that anyway, but I'm like, yeah, just call it the elder deities. So clear up any confusion there. More information about the Prydonian Isles can be located in Section 6, A Brief Gazetteer. That's the chapter, and I'll go to that in a bit after I cover the rest of this character creation stuff for Prydonians. Allowable callings for Central Islander Prydonians: alchemist, assassin, bard, craftsman, gladiator, healer, hunter, merchant, noble, pirate, priest, sage, seer, soldier, sorcerer, thief. So there you go. Attribute array. Prydonian player characters must arrange their attributes of character creation using the following guidelines. I think I've said this in every video, but just to be consistent. So when you start a character at 0 advancement, you start with the total attributes of +3. So in other words, your total The 6 attributes have to total up to +3. Can't be any higher. I guess you could be lower if you wanted to be, but it can't be any higher. So the 3 attributes that Prydonian Central Islanders that they sort of favor, that they can start with a higher number at, are agility, intellect, and willpower. They can start with as much as +4 in those, and the absolute maximum is +6. The minimum of those is -2 when you're starting. So that means the other 3 attributes are just kind of average. Physique, vigor, and... no, wait, I said it wrong. The favored ones are agility, intellect, and magnetism. I think I said willpower. That is incorrect. Agility, intellect, and magnetism. The ones that are more average are physique, vigor, and willpower. So there we go. Clear that up, because I never added these things. So there you go. Special abilities isn't racial abilities. Nautical affinity. Gain +1 bonus to acrobatics, athletics, perception, sailing, and stealth skill rolls while at sea or on a small island or beachhead. So, in other words, they're good at being close to the water or on the coastland. They're very marine, sea-based people. The other racial ability is metropolitan life, is what it's called. Yeah, I know. I think I'm clever. Gain a +1 bonus to perception, performance, persuasion, and stealth rolls when within cities of at least 5,000 inhabitants. Because, as the tongue-in-cheek name of the ability says, they are used to metropolitan lives, living in fairly urban areas, urbane situations. Skill specialties. Prydonian characters receive 3 free skill specialties at character creation that help reflect Prydonian culture and virtues. And there's a whole list of, looks like 12, maybe 13, which is sort of the max for most cultures to kind of choose from. And that could be anywhere from alchemy to just healing arts to persuasion, weaponry. So, for example, if you choose we'll say alchemy, one of your specialties could be elixirs, oils, or Prydonian fire. So if you chose lore as one of your free specialties, arcane, geography, history, philosophy, religion are your options. Or you could choose the appraisal, or bookbinding, or gardening, or scribing, or scrolls, or ships. Specialty of the crafting skill. And that's just a few examples. We'll do melee weaponry really quick. Daggers, short swords, spears, tridents. Range weaponry, composite short bows, javelins, or crossbows. And then there's several others. I just don't want to list all of them. Favorite talents. There's not too many battle talents. The outer Prydonians are known a little bit more as warriors, and the Central Islanders are a little bit more scholarly. And that's why they only have access to favorite talents. Remember, those means that you pay 1 point less if it's a favorite talent of your culture or of your calling. And they do add together, but you can't reduce a talent cost less than 1. We've gone over this before. So there's several of those. Blood talents, favored blood talents: Gorgon blood and Rhodonite blood. Rhodonite blood is one of the few ways in the setting that you can choose to be sort of divine blood, like you claim to be a descendant of Prydonis, or you claim to be a descendant of Neopos or Lucia or whatever. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but you have these kind of cool qualities. And then there's a fair amount of mystical talents that are favored. There's about 18 to 20 of those. Decent amount of social talents that are favored. There's about 12 of those. Centrifuge talents, looks like there are 4 of those that are favored. And then other talents, the other category, where other things do not fit, hence the name of the category. There's about 8 or 9 favored ones there. Favored weaknesses. These are, if you take one of these weaknesses, it means you gain a bonus point to add to buy another skill level, or to put towards a talent. Favorite talents. Favored weaknesses. Cursed, decadent, enemy. Enemy would be a rival captain or merchant. Indebted, famous, defeated sea captain, or disgraced philosopher is the infamous. Sorry, it's infamous, not famous. Oathbound, phobia of enclosed spaces, fire, or snakes. So there you go. And just a side note on that, so if you do earn a weakness in game while you're playing, you don't get the bonus points for it. I know to me it seems kind of obvious, but I've had this question asked a couple times. So no, you're not. You lose a hand and suddenly you're not smarter and you get more. So You just have to deal with it. Starting languages. Your native tongue is Prydonian, and you may start with one of the following as well. And if your intellect is -1 or better, which means it's intellect -1, it's just a little below average. Laurenthian, Mezcan, Assyrian, Ismondian, Old Rhodonian, and Gorgonic. So Laurenthian, Mezcan, Assyrian, which is across the sea. Ismondian, Old Rhodonian is actually Old Rhodonite. I just noticed yet another one of my own typos. And Gorgonic. Sample names: Athalos, Marathes, Nikos, Prydonis, Rhodonus, Theos, Xandros. Those are all male Xandros. Those are male names generally. And then you have Athelia, Charis, Dicaea, Marathea, Nika, Thea, and Xandria are female Prydonian names in general. These are just sample names again. Prydonians do not use formal surnames, save perhaps for certain noble houses, but often utilize son of or place names after their first. So you might have Xandros, son of Thea, for example, or more than likely they're typically Athalos of Leopolis or something like that, unless they are noble, and then they might actually have a house name. So there you go. Cultural item. You may choose one of the following items of character creation, or 2 by spending a luck point to complement the rest of your gear. So just like any other culture, you get these cool options. I'll just go over these really quick. A scroll written in an encrypted form of Old Rhodonite. DL20 language skill roll to decipher. These are kind of fun for GMs because it gives you some automatic plot hooks if they decipher it. Weathered map leads to a small trove, treasure trove if DL20 language or lore roll is made. Bronze or copper tablet. Reader gains a +1 bonus to lore if DL15 language is made. In other words, if it's decrypted and there's some secrets in there and increases their lore skill. 1/4 ownership of a bireme galley. So those of you who are not too familiar with Greek type ships, biremes are, you can probably tell by the word, it's a double decker. It's a bi-decker. There's usually oars on both decks. Historically pretty accurate, although they have there's also and there's triremes as well, which we'll get to. Triremes are triple decker. Some of those are most likely they existed, but they've been somewhat questionable to scholars for a while. It might have been that they actually had 3 decks, but only 2 of the decks had oars on them, and the 3rd deck was for fighting, was a combat deck, or was for carrying cargo or passengers or whatever. So just a little side note right there. I like to do my research for the most part. All right, the 1/4 ownership of Byrame Galley, usually harbored somewhere on the home island, so the island that your homeland is, that you probably grew up with on. Full ownership of a 4 to 6 man rowboat, usually harbored somewhere on home isle. Next option is small gilded Nautilus shell worth 10 plus 1d20 silver coins. So if you were to sell it, you might get that for it. Small trident made of blue-green coral. It grants +1 to magical arts water rolls, but ritual spells only. So only with performing rituals, magical art to water, +1 to that, which is kind of cool. Exceptional quality coral knife. It's +2 to maximum damage, but breaks on a natural roll of 1. I thought it was +1 to maximum damage. Why did I put +2 in here? That might be a typo because I don't think coral's pretty sharp, but not enough to be +2. That might have been a leftover from the previous edition. Anyway, regardless, it does break on a natural of 1. Ancient Scroll, your choice of +1. The Ancient Scroll gives you your choice of +1 to alchemy or magical arts, fire rolls, ritual spells only. So in other words, there's some ancient lore and secrets in there that you can discover. General Code of Honor. Give a sacrifice to the sea, an animal or object worth at least 5 silver coins before every voyage. Honor the captain/pilot of his vessel, unless he has shown to be untrustworthy. Protect all children and women needing such, for they are the nation's future. Honor and respect the Basilius, the sovereign lord of the Prydonian Republic. I should probably pause for that for a second. So the Basilius traditionally has lived in Prydon, the big city of Prydonis, and also it means sea city in Old Rhodonite. And it's kind of, so the flavor I have with it, it's kind of Venus meets, or not Venus, Venice meets Atlantis. So imagine this massive Greek metropolis that's half sunk, and like half the city is now underwater, and that's kind of where the Atlantean theme comes from. So yeah, the city of Prydon does still exist, but a lot of it is underwater, about half to 2/3 actually. So the Basilius still lives there. The Basilius is, or Basileus, no, I think it's Basilius. I'm just making stuff up now. He is not only the high priest, the grand high priest of the religion of Prydonis, of the sect of Prydonis, but he is the lord, the king, basically the emperor of the republic. Can't really have an emperor of the republic, but you know what I'm saying. The over king, I think technically is his title. So sort of like the queens of Scathia, but usually the priestess of Signa coming up to the rank to become the High Volga and / Queen of Scathia. Similar theme here, whereas the overall ruler or High Council member, because there's really a lot of advisors and councilmen that kind of help out with the decision making, comes up through the ranks of the sect of Prydonis. So in other words, people trust the wisdom of the priests, particularly of the Sea Lord Prydonis, over anything. So that's why that exists. And then traditionally, it's said that the current, I think it's the 34th Basilius, is known as Rhodonitis, is said to be a little old man now. He lives in the old Basilium, which is the name of the big palace in Prydon. It's like half underwater, and apparently he still lives there. So it's still kind of it's kind of a sad, tragic theme going on. So it's technically the holy center of the empire, but yet it's fading, and it's just kind of, not quite as productive as it used to be. But anyway, little side note there. Continuing on with general code of honor. Honor and respect the ancient gods of Rhodon, the forebears of the Prydonian people. Never suffer a pirate to live or go free, for they are the bane of the civilized seas. Yeah, they don't tolerate piracy very well at all, especially when most of your culture and your commerce is based on the sea. Avenge all serious insults by single combat or acceptance of a public apology. So there we go. Only single. So yeah, they only do single combat if it's like a pretty darn serious insult. So there you go. Yeah, that was the character creation section. So that is on page 36 and 37 of the hardcover core rule book. I think if it's the digital, it may be 37 and 38. I think it's shunted off by like a page. Shunted, I like that word. All right, so gazetteer section. We'll do this really quick. I'm going to try to keep this video shorter because they have not, and this is no dig at anyone in particular or even at myself. These videos have been, they haven't been super popular, so I'm just going to kind of shorten them a little bit. But I do want to have them out there as kind of a record, so because it does seem like some people do circle around. I occasionally do get a new subscriber that clicks on an old video, so I like to have it out there just for whoever. So, all right, so I was looking to the gazetteer, so this will be tricky because the gazetteer has each individual island and city island listed, so there's not like a central Prydonian island. But here, we'll do, I'll just go straight to Prydonia itself. Which the whole thing is kind of, and there's Neopos. Actually, while I'm here, so here's Neopos. Neopos, or actually Neopos is probably more the pronunciation if we're going somewhat Greek. So there we go. There's the island of Neopos. The capital is Leopolis. So Leopolis is really kind of interesting because Prydon was the ancient capital of the Prydonian Republic. But sort of Leopolis is now kind of moved into, it's kind of the de facto capital now of all the islands, particularly Neopos itself, of course. Prydon is almost more of a symbolic kind of city, some capital, as it were. So yeah, so a lot of commerce, a lot of stuff happens in Leopolis. Very crowded, very busy, growing city, still growing. That's Leopolis, and there's some other cool city-states on there as well. I keep calling them city-states to give that Greek flavor. They're not technically, because most of the cities on each island are pretty under one lord for the most part. So yeah, but there are several cities that really are almost have some autonomy, which make them really actual city-states. Let's go, and here's the island of Phylasteus, right there, which is really cool. Marcos and Philastinium are like your main cities there, as well as Philoria. And Phylastium is actually a ruin now, so it's a cool little adventure place. And then here's the island of Prydonia proper, right there with its giant bay in there. So when I drew all these original maps a long time ago, the uh, kind of the inspiration for that was the island of I think it's Santora, where you have the big crater bay right there that some people say some people connect it to Atlantis. Probably it's probably it was a caldera. It was a volcano and it just kind of crushed in itself and is now a watery caldera. Is probably what happened. So that's kind of what I'm going on with there. So the bay is probably really deep if it's based on a crater. It's called the Bay of Romega. Romega is the goddess of mystery and magic, and that's probably why it's called that. So it's probably very dark and very black. In fact, I don't know why I say probably. It is, having been the creator of it. I think I was saying probably because I wasn't really sure, but now it's clicked into my head. I'm like, yeah, that's actually what it was. That's supposed to be the deal. So the main city is Prydon. You can see it's actually a black square, meaning that it's a ruin, but it's not a full. Part of the city is still functional, as I said, but it's former. Its glory is very much in the past. Then you've got cities or towns called Hippocles and Vergosa and Apopolis and Mir and Calais. So those are all kind of interesting. All right, so just to read a couple little things from this section and then we'll probably call it quits. So I'll just stay on the Prydonia section. So the language of the Prydonian people, the native language is Prydonian. I know that's a shocker. Although Laurenthian is often known as well by most people here, Old Rhodonite is occasionally learned by priests and other scholars, as is, though rarer, Gorgonic, and even Titanic. So Titanic are also known as Titan speak. Really old language. Titans and giants they do not share the same language. They're kind of separated. There probably some similar, but the Prydonian language is the primary root of the Laurenthian tongue. So another little history lesson. I think I did this I did this in the Laurenthian video, but just to recap it. So Laurenthians were originally Prydonians. It just kind of Prydonian people that kind of sailed northward and sort of conquered that mainland area, conquered some of the native tribes that lived there, allied with some of them, whatever, typical sort of colonialism stuff, and so their racial stock and their is basically Prydonian. Of course, then over time, once they kind of intermingled with some of the other tribes, some of the northern tribes, and so they ended up with kind of their own sort of look, kind of like in real history. Even their language and culture changed a little bit, but that's why some of the gods are similar. Interesting enough, the Laurenthians don't really revere Prydonis much anymore, particularly in the north. Southern Laurenthians kind of do. Titherius, the god of commerce and wealth, has sort of almost taken over the sea god role there, particularly in the north. And then Agathon is the god they sort of share, Lucia, and Romega is not really known as much in Laurentia as well as up in the south. So just a little history tag there from or fake history from the setting. All right, so religion. Prydonis is easily the patron deity of the island, and again, I'm talking about the island of Prydonia proper, and even more so in Prydon itself, what remains of it in any case. Yet the Prydonians as a race are primarily a polytheistic lot, and so Romega, probably second in popularity, Atores, Lucia, Orices, Neopos, and Sardana, and their temples are well represented here too. So those are roundabout ways of saying if we had to rate the overall deities of the Prydonian, not only the Prydonian island, but the Prydonian, all the isles together, Prydonis would rank first, although there's other islands whose patron deities are more important to Prydonis to those people, but overall, you would say Prydonis, then probably Romega, like it says, or Atores, the sun god and bull god, then Lucia, she's a goddess of the arts and dance and even love and seduction to a lesser degree. Orices is a god of knowledge and prophecy. Neopos is a god, kind of a minor god of nighttime thieves and gamblers, therefore, and harlots kind of like worship him as their patron because he's sort of a night god, not necessarily an evil god, but definitely kind of amoral. And Sardana is the goddess of agriculture and animals and nature for the most part. Her priestesses are almost like druids in a sense that they were more from like a northwestern culture. Geography, Prydonia is separated into east and west portions with the Titan River, actually a man-made canal, running through the middle, situated north of the Bay of Romega, one of the defining features of the island. Mountains line the western coast, creating some extreme cliffs facing out to the sea, and more high peaks can be found on the southeastern tip of the isle. Some light to medium forests can be found at Prydonia's center, the Prydon City region, and some marshland in the south and southern western region. The island also sports a semi-active volcano on the northwestern coast, a fire mountain that has featured prominently in the past. There you go. All right, just a couple little things. Major cities. So the Prydon itself is once populated by over 200,000 people. The only city that would be larger now in the west would be Laurentius itself, which is the imperial capital of Laurentia. Built nearly 13 centuries ago by skilled and dedicated men who may have used architectural secrets of the Sidhe, Prydon became the center of Western human civilization. Hippocles is an important coastal town in the north, the birthplace of the renowned priest and sorcerer Jaehaerys. Jaehaerys, or Jazor, is the character of my graphic designer Michael Scott, actually, from a long time ago. Before it was technically Savage Kingdoms, it was like D&D, I think, or Pathfinder. Apopolos on the east coast is also of some renown, as is Vergosa and the interior city of Bassalon. Let's see, what else? So the main drink of the people here would be fine wine, is much preferred by typical Prydonian, or even cheap wine if that's all you can get. Also, although it's often watered down as to be more affordable, light ales and beers are also appreciated here to some degree, and more exotic drinks such as she wine or elixir of Rhodon, a part herb, part alchemical concoction, are consumed by the nobility and others of wealth. Swordfish, flounder, eel, squid, and octopi are common staples, often covered in olive sauce, plum spice, or silvered oranges. Chicken, pork, and beef are often eaten as well. All right, so 31 minutes. Here we go. A couple little things. Notable characters. I think I mentioned him. Rhodonius the Seventh is the current. This is actually not true. It says Rhodonius the Seventh is the current Basilius. He's actually like the. Oh no, Rhodonius the Seventh is actually correct, but he is the 34th Basilius, going all the way back. Some of them lived like a long time, so it really should probably be like in the 40s or 50s, but that's full. He's known as the Grand High Magus and Overking of Prydonia, and the Prydonian Republic, such what's remaining of it. I already mentioned that the Grand Magus eventually rises to kingship. Legendary oracle. So there's a legendary oracle named Orpheon. Lives on a tiny island in the Bay of Romega. So a lot of people will sail out to seek his wisdom. Very old. Meridon the Morastian is a champion gladiator. Just a couple of personalities there. Heraldry and symbology. The Basilius' royal and holy insignia is a silver trident, related word, above a line of blue water on which sits a golden lily. Meridon the Morastian often bears the symbol of his now defunct people, a deep blue tidal wave on a field of silver. Jaehaerys the Wise usually displays 3 white owls perched atop the prongs of a blue-green trident. Generally speaking, Prydonians prefer oceanic-themed heraldry and occasionally owls, bulls, lyres, or harps. All right. Enemies and allies. So Prydonian, mostly they're just big enemies of pirates, of piracy in general, and which sometimes mean as Mondos, because this Mondos can definitely be a little pushy at sea and a little borderline legal and moral at sea. And then Laurentia itself, there's a little bit. So even though they kind of respect each other because they're from the same bloodline, but that was a long time ago. So they're very distinct, different peoples now. But there hasn't been really any need for open war with them. So the good thing. So long story short, the island of Prydonia and most of the Prydonian Isles in general don't really have a whole lot of real enemies as far as on a national scale or kingdom scale, which is good for them. Actually. All right, in closing, let's see. Their coinage, they produce a bronze piece called a deca, which is actually more copper than bronze. And the zycus is a gold coin. That's their gold coin. There's even a platinum piece in circulation called a Rhodonus, or Rhodonas, minted in Neopos as well as parts of Orices and once in Prydon itself, although they are quite rare, but each worth about 5 gold zycas. In the smaller villages, however, trade and barter still exists, though it is not so common. So coins are pretty much accepted most anywhere unless it's the tiniest remote fishing village, maybe. Common customs. I read it from the Code of Honor. A lot of sailors like to throw sacrifices into the sea before a voyage, whether it's a small animal, whether it's a couple coins or some kind of trinket. So yeah, that's kind of a thing. So the thought being that here's we're paying for safe passage for the gods, particularly Prydonis, let us cross. Here's your offering. In return, we expect safe passage. That being the idea. Priests of Prydonis often carry a trident. Yeah, they often carry tridents. It's forbidden to capture any fish or sea mammal. One must go further out to sea beyond the 7 harbors to engage in any fishing or hunting. Interesting. All this around the city of Prydonis itself, or city of Prydon. Many women make pilgrimages to the shores of the Bay of Romega to submerge their newborn babies in the waters. I forgot a lot of this stuff myself. Since the bay is often equated to a divine womb, the birthing canal of the goddess of mysteries and magic herself. And there's some other, I don't have time to read all of them. All right, I'll end with this, the common sayings, because these are kind of fun. May the sea bring bounty to your kin and death to your enemies. Never suffer a Gorgon to live. May the elder 7 of Rhodon protect you. May you spend all your eternity in Auradon. By all the glory and majesty of Prydon. So these are all sort of sayings or exclamations. So I'll just go back with one of them. May you spend all your eternity in Auradon. So Auradon is kind of almost like a watery version of hell. It's almost like the hell world, but it's very specific to Prydonian culture. So it's said to be one of two places. It's either an island in the netherworld, or it's just really far away. People aren't really, you know how myths are, even in a fantasy setting. And then some people believe it's the deepest part of the ocean, which is probably 6 or 7 miles in the Sea of Prydonis. It's actually probably not quite that deep. It's probably 5 miles. And it's like, so therefore it's just so deep, it's black and crushing, and technically you're probably in another world. So in any case, when you say you want somebody to go to Auradon, you're basically saying go to hell, or going to the hell, or going to a bad place. So there we go. I shall end on that note, weirdly enough. So thanks for putting up with me for this long at 37 minutes. Actually a little bit longer than I thought I was going to do, but I ramble. So there you have it. Like, subscribe, share these videos, all that kind of stuff. The Savage East will finally, once I get my money from Indiegogo, whole different thing. And then finally the books I can pay the graphic designer, and I can pay for shipping and all that stuff. So that'll be out to people hopefully in the next 2 or 3 months. So anyway, thanks guys, and I will talk to you again soon.